Good morning. Here we are, Saturday fun time. I would like to call the joint meeting of Senate Finance and Assembly Ways and Means to order. And Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Bacchus. Assemblywoman Brown May. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblyman Miller. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Yeager. Senator Canizaro. Senator Gokachia. Senator Harris. Senator Neal. Senator Wynn. Senator Severs-Gansert. Senator Titus. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Chair Dondero Loop.
And please mark Assemblywoman Howdigi absent excused, and if anybody isn't here, please mark them present as they arrive. Thank you very much, and I probably don't need to tell you because it's Saturday, but please silence all your devices. Thank you very much. And we will have a full schedule this morning. First, we have a closing on the operating budget of the Public Employees Retirement System. Then we have a budget work session for the judicial branch budgets. And lastly, we'll have here several reports with closing recommendations from various subcommittees. So we will begin with budget closing for the Public Employees Retirement System, budget account 4821. And I'll invite Ms. Mangova to the table to walk the committee through the closing packet. And for those in the audience, a copy of the closing packet is available. And Ms. Mangova, please start when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Good morning, members of the committee. For the record, J. Marie Mangova, and I'm here to present the PERS administration budget, which was heard by this committee on February 13th. There are four major closing issues for this budget. The first major closing issue is a recommendation of administrative fees of $11.7 million in fiscal year 24 and $6.1 million in fiscal year 25 to continue funding the replacement of the system's pension administration system and other various replacement equipment. The replacement of the system's existing pension administration system was originally approved by the 2019 legislature to address issues PERS was experiencing in calculating benefits and fulfilling information requests. The PERS Retirement Board approved a contract with Tegrit Software Ventures Incorporated in February of 2021 to develop the new pension administrative system. The contract included 7 phases for a total cost of $23.5 million. The table on page 4 shows the project timeline and associated cost, and based on this timeline, the projected completion date is January of 2025. The 2019 and 2021 legislature issued a letter of intent instructing PERS to submit status reports of the pension administration system to continue monitoring the status of the pension administrative system project throughout the 2023-25 biennium. The committees may wish to consider issuing a letter of intent requesting the system to submit a report at each meeting of the Interim Retirement and Benefits Committee of the pension administrative system status. Do the committees wish to approve administrative fees of $11.7 million in fiscal year 24 and $6.1 million in fiscal year 25 to continue the replacement of the system's pension administrative system and other various replacement equipment costs? In addition, do the committees wish to issue a letter of intent requesting the system report at each meeting of the Interim Retirement and Benefits Committee the status of the system replacement?
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the administrative fees as discussed by staff in addition to the letter of intent.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Please go on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second major closing issue is the recommendation of administrative fees of $131,580 in fiscal year '24 and $170,411 in fiscal year '25 to support the salaries and benefits of one IT technician position and a management analyst position referred by PERS as a retirement analyst position, as well as operating expenditures associated with these two positions. According to the system, these positions are needed due to the continued increase in the number of members it serves. The table on page 6 provides the actual number of PERS active members, benefit recipients, and public employers in fiscal year 22 and projected for fiscal year 23 through fiscal year 25. The system indicates that one new IT technician position is needed due to the increased workload in webmaster submissions, which has been the preferred method of communication for members and retirees. The system further indicates this new position is needed to assist PERS members with the new pension administrative system, which would transition users to a more self-serve and web-based option. The system indicates that the new management analyst position, if approved, would allow the system to have one senior staff dedicated to processing and managing the disability process, qualified domestic relations orders, and police and firefighters retirement fund advisory committee duties. The system further indicates the recommendation for the new management analyst position would allow 5 existing manager positions currently performing the proposed duties of this position to focus on their job duties and provide additional staff training. The decision unit includes personal assessments of $474 in each year of the biennium, which the system indicates is incorrect and should be eliminated since the Department of Administration no longer provides human resources services for PERS. Additionally, the system indicates if the new IT position is approved, it could eliminate IT contract services, which would result in projected savings of $27,286 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to reduce administrative fees by $27,760 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium to eliminate personal assessments and contract services expenditures. Do the committees wish to approve administrative fees of $131,580 in fiscal year '24 and $170,411 in fiscal year '25 for a new IT technician position and a new management analyst position for the system, with the technical adjustments noted by fiscal staff to eliminate the personal assessments and IT contract services costs, and provide fiscal staff with the authority to make any other necessary technical adjustments.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you. I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the administrative fees as noted by staff in this presentation, along with the technical adjustments noted to eliminate the personnel assessments and IT contract service costs, and provide our fiscal staff with the authority to make any other necessary technical adjustments.
Second.
Thank you very much. I have a motion by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno and a second by Senator Canizero. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the third major closing issue for this budget starts on page 7. The system recommends administrative fees of $201,079 in fiscal year '24 and $196,119 in fiscal year '25 to support the salaries and benefits of one new chief administrative analyst position and associated operating expenditures. According to the system, a new chief administrative analyst position would manage the business rules, data management, and business process of the new pension administrative system and address the increased workload resulting from additional Internal Revenue Service requirements for pension plans. This position is recommended to be included as an executive staff member in accordance with NRS 286.160. Assembly Bill 461 has been introduced to effectuate the change in administrative staff. Staff had provided additional information on top of page 8, which provides the additional duties and responsibilities of this new position. The system recommends a salary of $152,152 per year for the Chief Administrative Analyst position, which is tied to a salary schedule and is 2 steps below the Chief Financial Officer salary schedule in anticipation that the incumbent and other lower level positions would be promoted to higher level positions in the future. Do the committees wish to approve administrative fees of $201,079 in fiscal year 24 and $196,119 in fiscal year 25 for a new Chief Administrative Analyst position contingent upon passage and approval of Assembly Bill 461 or other authorizing legislation and provide fiscal staff with the authority to make any other technical adjustments?
Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the administrative fees as noted by staff and provide fiscal staff with the authority to make any necessary technical adjustments.
I have a motion by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, a second by Senator Canizaro. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The fourth major closing issue for this budget is a recommendation of administrative fees of $167,197 in fiscal year 24 and $167,205 in fiscal year 25 for a 2-step pay increase for the 9 existing executive staff positions. The system indicates the recommendation for a 2-step pay increase for the 9 executive positions would provide an incentive for employee retention and allow for succession planning. Pursuant to NRS 286.160, the salaries of the 9 existing executive positions are approved by the PERS Board with the approval of the Interim Retirement and Benefits Committee. PERS executive positions traditionally receive the cost of living adjustments approved by the legislature for employees not represented by a collective bargaining agreement. The table on page 9 provides a comparison of the existing salaries, the proposed salaries of the 9 executive positions with a 2-step increase, and the salaries of these positions with the governor recommended cost of living adjustment in each year of the 2023-25 biennium. The system indicates the PERS Board approved revising its existing 10-step salary schedule to reflect a 2-grade increase in the salaries for all 9 executive positions to be competitive in recruiting and retaining staff that have the knowledge and experience to perform the daily operations of the system. During the budget hearing, the system testified the PERS Board reviewed the executive staff salaries and compared them to other retirement systems of similar size and determined the average or median salaries provided by other retirement systems for their employees are higher than the maximum salary provided by PERS. PERS provided the results of that survey conducted by the Teacher Retirement System of Texas, which can be found at the bottom of page 9. Do the committees wish to approve administrative fees of $167,197 in fiscal year 24 and $167,205 in fiscal year 25 for a 2-step salary increase for the 9 executive staff positions?
Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the administrative fees as discussed by staff.
Thank you very much.
Second.
I have a motion by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno and a second by Senator Canizaro. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 9, there's only one other closing item. The governor's recommended base budget includes personal assessment expenditures totaling $17,070 in each year of the biennium, which the system indicates is incorrect and should be eliminated since DHR, the Department of Administration, no longer provides human resource services for PERS. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to reduce administrative fees by $17,070 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium to eliminate the personal assessments expenditures. Fiscal staff recommends the other closing item be closed with the recommended technical adjustments and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll accept a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the other closing items be closed with the recommended technical adjustments and requests, and give the authority to staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
I'll accept a motion from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, a second from Senator Canizaro. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Please go ahead. Oh, that's it. Sorry. I kind of get in this role, right? Thank you very much, and thank you for your time this Saturday morning. Okay, the next item on our budget is a work session on the judicial branch budgets. As a reminder, committee members, the goal of the budget work session is to provide fiscal staff with direction and preparation for the budget closings. And Ms. Day is here to take us through the work session document. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The judicial branch budgets were presented to the joint committees on March 13th. The work session document in front of you will cover a few of the major issues that are included in those budgets. Pursuant to the Nevada Revised Statutes 353-246, the budgets of the judicial branch are included in the executive budget but are not subject to review by the governor. Therefore, the budgets presented represent the budget request of the judicial branch. Judicial branch budgets are supported primarily through general fund appropriations and court administrative assessments authorized under NRS 176059, which are the fees charged to defendants in criminal traffic cases. As included on the table on page 1, the total budgets for the judicial branch are recommended by the judicial branch at $168.6 million, net of $12 million in interagency transfers, and that is the COVID relief dollars. The Judicial Branch Budget Reform Act is proposed in the Senate Bill 58. The judicial branch is designating that as their as the Judicial Branch Budget Reform Act of 2023, which is comprised of following reforms that, according to the judicial branch, would support the role of the judiciary as a separate and co-equal branch of government. Number 1 is establish a judicial fund. Number 2, eliminate reliance on the executive branch to provide state services and technology by implementing court-managed central services. And number 3 would develop a unique compensation schedule for judicial branch employees. There will be 3 issues discussed for the work session this morning. Number 1 is a proposed new judicial branch classification and compensation schedule. The judicial branch recommends total funding of $13.3 million, general fund appropriations of $8.8 million over the 2023-25 biennium to move the court's existing 170 positions, and this excludes judicial elected officials. So the 170 existing positions into non-classified position classifications with revised salaries in the base budget based on a proposed new judicial branch classification and compensation schedule. According to the court, the new structure would allow the judicial branch to be more competitive in a rapidly changing job market and would not only address the sufficiency of wages, but also bring the overall position classification structure into a relevant format, allowing employees to be compensated based on their knowledge, skills, and abilities. The judicial branch classification and compensation schedule as proposed would move the court's existing 170 positions, excluding elected officials, into 10 new non-classified classifications effective July 1, 2023, and effectuate salary increases of varying degrees for all of the court's existing positions in the base, which are detailed on Attachment 1. Traditionally, budget enhancement requests, including requested salary increases, are presented as decision units in the budget rather than included in the base budget. Additionally, the judicial branch recommends enhancement decision units that include the addition of 32 new positions within the new proposed schedule, which are not addressed in the work session document. The tables on page 3 summarize the proposed new judicial branch classification and compensation schedule and provide examples of current judicial branch positions within 7 of the 10 new classifications. The first table on page 3 is the judicial branch proposed classification and compensation schedule. The new classifications would be operations, law clerks, confidential employee, analyst 1, analyst 2, program specialist, program officer, staff attorney, program manager, division director, and executive director. For the court's information, in the middle of that table, the minimum salary for the operations would be $50,423 annually, and the maximum salary proposed by the judicial branch would be in the executive director classification, which was $196,733. The next table on page 3 provides some examples of judicial branch positions in those proposed classifications. There is an attachment that is beginning on page 13 of your work session document, and that does lay out the 170 positions that are included in the judicial branch's request for reclassification. On that table, all positions have been converted to employer-paid retirement, and for the positions that are currently calculated at grade and step, the step 10 or the maximum salary for those positions is reflected. Therefore, it is comparing the employer-paid maximum salary of the current classifications to the employer-paid maximum salaries of the judicial branch's recommendation. Get back to Sorry. During the budget hearing on March 13th, 2023, judicial branch staff testified that the average hourly rate in the state of Nevada, including the private sector, is $21.25 per hour, which is $44,370 annually, and the average living wage in the state of Nevada is $23.24 per hour for an annual salary of $48,525. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, as of May 2021, the median hourly wage for Nevada for all occupations was $18.22, while the mean hourly wage was $24.56. More specifically, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that for that same period, that legal occupations in Nevada provided a median hourly wage of $38.17 per hour, and a mean hourly wage of $49.67 per hour. Judicial branch staff testified that some judicial branch positions are adequately compensated, but need an adjustment related to the living wage, while a couple of positions have a disproportionate classification that needs to be adjusted. Judicial branch staff also testified that the vacancy rate for the judicial branch at the time of the hearing was approximately 10%, and according to the Human Resources Data Warehouse as of April 8th, 2023, the vacancy rate is 8.8%. According to the judicial branch, their proposed classification and compensation schedule is based on a living wage for all of its employees. The salaries recommended by the judicial branch range from a minimum salary of $24.149 per hour, which is $50,423 annually, to a maximum salary of $94.221 per hour, or $196,733 annually. The increase to the maximum salaries proposed by the judicial branch for existing employees are on average 32.5% higher compared to the maximum salaries approved by the 2021 legislature, including the 1% cost of living adjustment effective 7/1/2022. The maximum salaries of the 170 positions as proposed increase over the maximum salaries approved by the 2021 legislature in specific ranges that are detailed on page 4 of your work session document. For example, there would be 75 positions in the 31 to 40% range and 19 positions within the 41 to 50% range. According to the judicial branch, the base salaries were updated to reflect the new proposed classification system that eliminates a grade and step structure and creates a system based on support, professional, and management tracks due to the highly specialized knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required for many of the positions that support the Supreme Court, and those are described in the middle of page 4. The judicial branch stated that it conducted a comprehensive survey of market compensation from publicly available data, including the Office of the Attorney General, the Legislative Council Bureau, and court employees in Carson City, Clark, and Washoe counties. It also analyzed living wage data to evaluate the efficacy and necessity of the court's proposed compensation schedule. The court determined that it is significantly behind both the public and private sectors in compensation, and the cost of living in Nevada is a burden on its employees. As detailed in the previous table, except for law clerks, each proposed classification includes a maximum, midpoint, and minimum salary. According to the judicial branch, the salary range was created and would be applied to an employee's qualifications as evaluated under the Hay methodology and current compensation, inflation, and COLA trends using a competency schedule. The Hay methodology is a method used by organizations to map out their job roles in the context of the organizational structure, and that was described by the judicial branch staff during that hearing. Although the court staff stated that the employee's placement within the minimum, midpoint, and maximum salaries would be based on the well-established method, the court would request funding for all positions at the maximum salary level, which would allow funding for the court for expenditures such as recruiting the most qualified candidates if vacancies occur, reacting to budgeted overtime, and using existing revenues to complete modernization projects with contract and temporary employees. A work session on the Senate Committee on Finance and Assembly Committee on Ways and Means was held on June 30th, 2023, that covered topics related to state employee compensation and benefits, including but not limited to salary increases in addition to the COLAs recommended by the governor, as well as state and employee contributions to the public employees retirement system. In addition to the COLAs proposed by the governor, an additional increase in salaries of 2% for all state employees, including judicial branch staff, effective April 1, 2023, was discussed, as well as state and employee contributions to the public employees retirement system. That scenario was presented to reduce the percentage of contributions made to PERS by state employees by 1/2 of the normal cost, which would reduce the employee contribution rate from 17.5% to 10% for the 2023-25 biennium, based on the employer-paid retirement plan for regular employees. Judicial branch staff indicated that the number of positions that will be at the maximum salary on July 1, 2023 will not exceed 58 positions, and that it is the intent of the judicial branch to not be included in the statewide COLAs for the 2023-25 biennium recommended by the governor. Judicial branch staff also stated that it may recommend a further adjustment to the compensation schedule to make up for proposed increase in public employees' system retirement contribution rates. The tables in attachment 2, which begin on page 19 of your work session document, compare the judicial branch's proposed maximum, midpoint, and minimum salaries for the 10 proposed new position classifications to the salaries for classified employees based on grade and step, as well as unclassified executive assistant, staff attorney, supervisory staff attorney, deputy attorney general, senior deputy attorney general, and division administrator, deputy director, and director positions of major executive branch departments such as the Governor's Finance Office, Department of Administration, and the Department of Corrections. The tables include minimum salaries for the majority of grades 21 through 55 and maximum salaries for the majority of grades 21 through 48, step 10. That first would be at a step 1. Maximum salaries are a step 10 in certain unclassified positions. The first table includes the COLAs of 10% and 4% as recommended by the governor, and the second table includes the impact of an additional 2% COLA, an additional 2% COLA, as discussed in the work session on state employee compensation benefits and included in Senate Bill 440. So on that, the tables that are on pages 19 and 20 of your work session document, there are the grade and step position, classified positions at grade and step, certain unclassified positions, and then the columns to the right show the impact of the proposed judicial branch classifications where they would fall within those. On page 5 of your closing packet, as displayed in the table on page 6, the minimum salary proposed by the judicial branch of $24.149 per hour, which is $50,423 annually, is significantly higher than the salary of a classified grade 25 step 1, which is equivalent to an administrative assistant 2 in the executive branch, at $18.80 per hour or $39,254 annually, if the COLAs for state employees of 10% and 4% are approved as proposed by the governor, and 19.17% per hour, or $40,027 annually, if an additional 2% COLA was approved by the legislature. The proposed minimum salary for the judicial branch is slightly higher than the salary of a classified grade 31, step 1, which is equivalent to a supervising legal secretary in the executive branch, which is $50,091 annually if the COLAs for state employees of 10% and 4% are approved as proposed by the governor, or a classified grade 30 step 1 at $49,005 annually if an additional 2% COLA was approved by the legislature. As proposed, maximum salaries for the judicial branch of $94.221 per hour or $196,733 annually would be $30,632 more than the salaries for unclassified directors of major executive branch departments of $166,100 annually if the COLAs are approved as recommended by the governor, and $27,312 more than the annual salary of $169,420 if an additional 2% COLA was approved by the legislature for those positions. The table in the middle of page 6 of your work session document does include some comparisons to the judicial branch proposed classifications to some grade step or unclassified classifications for executive branch employees. The committees may wish to consider reducing the proposed maximum salary recommendations for each of the 10 proposed new position classifications if the percentage of contributions made to the public employees retirement system by state employees is reduced to 1/2 of normal costs, which would reduce the employee contribution from 17.5% to 10% for the 2023-25 biennium based on the employee-employer paid retirement plan for regular positions. If this option is selected, the committees may wish to request that the court provide updated maximum, midpoint, and minimum salary recommendations for each of the 10 proposed position classifications. On page 7 of your work session document is a decision box. Decisions to be made by the committees at closing. Option 1, whether to approve a proposed new judicial branch classification and compensation schedule, including total funding of $13.3 million, $8.8 million in general fund, for salary increases as recommended by the judicial branch. Or Option 2, whether to approve a proposed new judicial branch classification and compensation schedule, including funding for salary increases as recommended by the judicial branch, with an adjustment to the maximum, midpoint, and minimum salaries to reflect a reduction in the percentage of contributions made to the public employees retirement system by state employees to 1/2 of normal costs, which would reduce the employee contribution rate from 17.5% to 10% for the 2023-25 biennium based on the employee-employer pay retirement plan for regular employees. Or Option 3, whether to approve funding for judicial branch positions at the levels approved by the 2021 legislature and inclusive of any cost of living adjustments approved for executive and legislative branch staff not represented by a collective bargaining unit. Or Option 4, whether to approve funding for judicial branch positions at the levels approved by the 2021 legislature, including adjustments to positions made by the judicial branch through April 14th, 2023, as well as positions identified by the judicial branch as having a disproportionate classification that should be adjusted, plus cost of living adjustments consistent with employees in the executive and legislative branches. If this option is selected, fiscal staff will work with the judicial branch to determine which positions would meet these criteria and provide that information at the budget closing. And if options 1 or 2 are chosen, whether to approve funding for judicial branch positions at the maximum salary for each position as recommended by the judicial branch and consistent with the state unclassified positions, or given that the judicial branch indicated that not more than 58 positions would be at the maximum salary on July 1, 2023, only providing funding for the estimated annual salaries for each position. Madam Chair, would you like me to stop there, or would you like me to go through the entire work session document?
Let's stop there, and we'll have a discussion on that. And I think I would move to approve funding for the judicial branch positions at the levels approved by the 2021 legislature, including adjustments to positions made by the judicial branch through April 14th, 2023, as well as positions identified by the judicial branch as having a disproportionate classification that should be adjusted, plus cost of living adjustments consistent with employees in the executive and legislative branches. And this is option 4 for those of you reading. Is there any discussion on this? Senator Gansert.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the presentation and the concerns of the judicial branch. You know, at this time, there's several things. You know, first of all is the inequity between branches, and I appreciate the table that was created because we've got a lot of deputy attorney generals who will have a pay disparity, right? So we're going to pay one branch of government a different amount if you're in that branch versus the other, right? So we're going to be creating gaps in pay, and so we'll probably end up competing within the state for different types of employees with similar qualifications. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the maximums that have been presented. If you were to look at the top 8 positions in some of the tables that I think are on page 13 through maybe it's 17, I think there would be 8 positions with the maximums that would be greater than the executive branch directors. And so we're talking about the Director of Health and Human Services, corrections, you can kind of go down the list. And when you have a disparity of as much as $30,000, like a little few thousand to $30,000 between branches, and when you look at the executive branch, the directors, they may be overseeing hundreds to thousands of employees. The responsibilities that they have at that level are tremendous. And to have that pay gap, I think, would have a very negative impact on how they, for those folks who hold those positions. And I think it would hurt morale because, again, they have so many responsibilities. And then, kind of the global issues concerning the COLAs and also PERS, when we look at PERS and things like that, I'm concerned about those global issues and making sure that we give our employees significant raises as proposed by the governor. So significant raises, but make sure that they're sustainable. And so the original budget, of course, had substantial raises, but it also had savings. So when we give raises, we make sure that we can continue to pay those when we have a downturn. And 2020, we had to put everybody on furloughs, right? It's not so long ago that we had to do something like that because we were in a case where the economy took a turn for the worse. So anyway, those are my concerns, and so my choice would be option 3, again, until we work out globally what we're doing with some of these issues and pay raises. But also I think the disparity between branches for pay is an issue, especially some of the higher levels. It is for all the attorneys, but also when I looked at the director positions, I just don't think we should leap to such a high level when we have these executive directors in the executive branch who would be making substantially less. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, well, with that, then, I'm sorry, Assemblywoman Bacchus.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I think maybe we may need a little more clarification for option 4. As I understood it, would be our LCB fiscal staff would work with the judiciary, so we were able to look at that we were making sure that positions were lining up and we were kind of making everything look the same. So when we're comparing it, like I was able to look at your multiple charts, and I thank you so much for all the work you've spent doing these charts. They're very comprehensive, and I just looked at one quickly because I compared apples to apples, like staff attorneys, for example, at the Attorney General's office, and the requested pay increase here was like close to, I think, 35,000 pay increase from our Attorney General's office to our judiciary, and that kind of was what resonated to me, and echoing what my colleague said. But I thought option 4 would be good to give our fiscal staff some latitude in working out what we're looking at when we're going further to approve the budget.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments?
She asked for clarification.
Madam Chair, may I provide a
Yes,
little
would
bit
you
of extra
please?
clarification?
Would you please?
For the committee's information, we did receive some additional information from the judicial branch. The positions that they have identified as having a disproportionate classification, there are 5 positions. There's an auditor, guardianship investigator, judicial auditor, judicial programs manager, and chief information security officer. So it's 5 positions. It wouldn't be a large quantity of positions.
Additional comments, Senator Canizaro?
Yes, just briefly, I'm going to try not to muddy this up anymore. I think
that with respect to option 4, that makes sense because as I understand it, some of those positions, and you can correct me if I am wrong, but some of those positions were adjusted in the interim, and I think it would be unfair to kind of take them back. We want to make sure they're at that same level and then just adjust them with respect to COLAs and some of these other things that we are discussing. And then just as a sort of a side note to that, I think the important piece of this, at least for me, is that there are a lot of very hardworking people in our judiciary branch. They do very important work. I think they do deserve raises. Obviously, they're going to be part of that as well. I think the tougher piece is trying to make sure that we are giving raises. We've heard the same kind of conversation around a lot of our state employees in various branches. And so we want to be able to take care of everybody in the judiciary branch and also all the other individuals that we have had so many discussions about that make our state government run. And so I would be comfortable, I think, with option 4 so that we can make those adjustments for those other positions in the classifications.
Thank you very much. Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to agree with the comments from Senator Cannizzaro that I think in this case, given what we're doing for all employees, option number 4 makes the most sense to me because they're getting those raises. But then we are accommodating some of those positions that I think everyone agrees was historically underfunded or under-salaried, if that's a word, for the work that they were doing. So I support option 4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments, questions?
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes, Ms. Day, please go ahead.
Thank you. I did want to add one more comment. There were a few positions that were adjusted in the interim, the salaries, and that could be brought back to the closing to identify those positions and those salary changes. Oh, Stephanie Day for the record, sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, with that, then we can move on to the Court Administrative Assessment Review.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Yeah, we're moving.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The Judicial Branch recommends general fund appropriations of $5.4 million in each fiscal year of the 2023-25 biennium to reduce the court's dependency on court administrative assessment revenues. The recommendation includes shifting all court administrative assessment revenue and judicial branch budgets to the Administrative Office of the Courts. Court administrative assessment revenues, also known as AAs, have been significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the incorporation of Marcy's Law into the Nevada Constitution in 2019, which requires restitution to be collected on many charges first. Additionally, Assembly Bill 116, which was approved by the 2021 legislature, changes certain traffic offenses from criminal misdemeanor to civil infractions. Based on projections prepared by the Judicial Branch in November 2022, court administrative assessment revenue is estimated at $31.1 million for the 2023 biennium, which represents a $13.5 million or 30.2% decrease as compared to court administrative assessment revenue that was projected for the 21-23 biennium. The fiscal impact of Assembly Bill 116 on court administrative assessment revenue is unknown at this time and therefore not included in the Judicial Branch's projection for the 2023-25 biennium. Pursuant to NRS 176059, not less than 51% of court administrative assessment revenues deposited in the State General Fund must be distributed to the Administrative Office of the Courts for allocation among the various Judicial Branch budget accounts based on the percentage of distribution set in NRS 176059-8A, and not more than 49% must be distributed to various executive branch budgets to the extent of legislative authorization. Any court administrative assessments not distributed to the judicial and executive branch budgets must be transferred to the uncommitted balance of the State General Fund. The executive branch the executive budget includes total court administrative assessment revenues of $11.5 million in fiscal year 2024 and $11.8 million in 2025 in the administrative office of the court's budget. The Governor's Finance Office seeks to deposit all court administrative assessments collected directly into the general fund through Senate Bill 448, which has been referred to the Senate Committee on Finance. The executive budget includes enhancements in executive branch budgets to eliminate all court administrative assessment revenue and instead support the budgets with direct appropriations from the state general fund. The judicial branch budgets, which do include the $11.5 million in fiscal year 2024 and $11.8 million in 2025. So those budgets, there is a bill, Senate Bill 58, which seeks to eliminate the specific distribution of court administrative assessment revenue within judicial branch budgets to allow for the shifting of that revenue source in those budgets to the administrative office of the court's budget. In response to questions, the court stated that significant benefits could be realized from replacing court administrative assessment revenue with general fund appropriation and does not have concern with the replacement of that revenue source in all of its accounts as proposed by the Governor's Finance Office. Additionally, the court stated potential statutory or case law hurdles from the reassignment of court administrative assessment revenue to the state general fund without being committed to the benefit of the court system could potentially be overcome if all court administrative assessments currently distributed to state budgets were reassigned to the general fund. At the top of page 9 of your work session document, there are 2 court cases that are cited, Board of County Commissioners versus White and McKay versus City of Las Vegas that statement is related to. On page 9 of your work session document, there is a decision box. Decisions to be made by the committees at closing. Whether to approve $10.8 million in general fund appropriations over the 2023-25 biennium to reduce the court's dependency on court administrative assessment revenue as recommended by the judicial branch. Or whether to replace all court administrative assessment revenues with general fund appropriation in judicial branch budgets consistent with the governor's recommendation for the executive branch budgets. And if it is determined that all court administrative assessments currently allocated to the judicial branch should be replaced with general fund appropriations, whether to replace the remaining court administrative assessments of $11.5 million in fiscal year 2024 and $11.8 million in fiscal year 2025 in the administrative office of the courts with commensurate general fund appropriations.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on this?
Madam Chair, in hearing the conversation during the actual hearing we had and knowing the direction that we as a country are going, I think the option B, to replace all the court administrative assessment revenues with general fund appropriations in the judicial branch budgets, consistent with the governor's recommendation for the executive branch, and we should also go with determining that all court administrative assessments currently allocated to the judicial branch should be replaced with general fund appropriations.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Senator Gansert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I don't have concerns about the amount of money that we're talking about, but it's the sources of money, and there are 2 court cases that are cited that funds have to be primarily for the benefit of the court system. So I'm not quite sure how. I don't want us to set ourselves up for another court challenge because we're doing this. So if there's a way to balance the funds, given the changes in the assessments, and I guess I don't exactly know what those numbers are because I don't think those were specifically presented here. And I think we had a 51-49% split before to make sure we did that. So it's not really about how much money, but to make sure. And I heard the testimony that if we do all of it, then maybe we're okay. But I don't want the state to face a challenge because of this, and so if there's a way to review how we can balance court assessments with general fund, I would be in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I just did want to note in response to my colleagues' concerns that I think we do have a bill, Senate Bill 448, working through the process that I think will take care, hopefully will take care of that concern about the court cases and how the assessments can be used. And I think we heard at least some testimony during the hearing that representatives of the court believe that that might solve the problem. So I am in favor of just not funding with administrative assessment fees, and I feel obligated to again mention former Justice Hardesty, who has been really fighting for this issue as long as I can remember in this building. I think the very first time I walked in the building, he pulled me aside and said, this is a really bad way to fund the courts. And it's taken, I guess, 10 plus years to get to this point, but I think fiscally it really makes sense. And certainly in the times when we've had economic downturns for the court to have to come back because of declining administrative assessment fees. So I'm fully supportive of just taking that funding source away entirely, putting it in the general fund, and funding the courts through the general fund instead of administrative assessments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments? All right. I'm sorry, Senator Gansard?
Thank you. So I'm going to support the motion because we have something working through the process, and I'm going to trust the attorneys on our panel here, on our committees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're not voting on this, so we're moving forward. And so, Ms. Day, when you're ready, general fund reversions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. On page 9 of your work session document is the general fund reversions. The Judicial Branch submitted Senate Bill 58 seeking to create the judicial fund and provide that money in the fund does not revert to the general fund at the end of a fiscal year, which seeks to retain all general fund remaining in the judicial branch budgets at the end of each fiscal year, and eliminate the requirement that general fund appropriations be reduced by the amount of court administrative assessment revenue distributed to the judicial branch budgets. Based on a fiscal note submitted by the Administrative Office of the Courts, there would not be a fiscal impact to the judicial branch, since the judicial fund contemplated in the legislation would be funded through savings achieved in the judicial branch out of appropriations and applicable authorizations made at the beginning of each biennium. Fiscal staff notes that while there may not be a fiscal impact to the judicial branch, there would be a fiscal impact to the general fund, since funds remaining in judicial branch budgets at the end of a fiscal year would no longer revert to the general fund, and general fund appropriations would no longer be reduced by the amount of court administrative assessment revenue distributed to the judicial branch, which, if the legislation changes did go through, those administrative assessments would no longer be deposited or distributed to those judicial branch budgets, so that would go away. If the committees wish to replace the court administrative assessment revenue with general fund appropriations in judicial branch budgets, consistent with the governor's recommendation for the executive branch budgets, the judicial branch budgets would be funded through general fund appropriations. Fiscal staff would note that if the judicial branch budgets are funded with general fund appropriations, the budget should no longer maintain operating reserve categories currently related to court administrative assessments, and any funds remaining at the end of a fiscal year should revert to the general fund unless Senate Bill 58 or other enabling legislation is adopted that allows the judicial branch to retain any remaining funds. The executive budget includes reserves at the end of the 23-25 biennium related to court administrative assessments of $2.1 million in the Administrative Office of the Courts budget and $2.2 million in the Specialty Court budget. In response to questions posed at the Legislative Commission's Budget Subcommittee hearing on February 2nd, 2023, the judicial branch stated that reversions to the general fund from judicial branch budgets have totaled $13 million from fiscal year 2017 through fiscal year 2022. As displayed in the table on page 10, of the $13 million reverted to the general fund from fiscal year 2017 through 2022, a significant portion of the reversions, $5.5 million, came from the state judicial elected officials' budget. The state judicial elected officials' budget is supported entirely with general fund appropriations that fund the salaries and fringe benefit costs of the justices of the Supreme Court, judges of the Court of Appeals, and judges of the District Court. There are currently 7 justices of the Supreme Court, 3 judges of the Court of Appeals, and 90 District Court judges. The budget also funds judicial selection for any judicially elected or appointed vacancy that occurs before the expiration of any term of office in the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, or among District Court judges. The judicial branch also recommends consolidating the judicial retirement system state share budget, which is budget account 1491, which serves as the pass-through budget to the public employees retirement system, to fund the unfunded liability portion of the judicial retirement system with the state judicial elected official budget effective July 1, 2023, to account for all costs related to the salaries and benefits of judicial elected officials in one account. If the committees wish to approve the judicial branch's request to not revert general funds remaining at the end of each fiscal year, the committees may wish to consider excluding the state judicial elected officials' budget since it primarily funds costs related to the salaries and benefits of judicial elected officials. At the top of page 11 of your work session document is the decision box. Decisions to be made by the committee at closing. Whether to allow the judicial branch to retain funds remaining in judicial branch budgets at the end of each fiscal year, contingent upon approval of Senate Bill 58 or other enabling legislation, and if it is the committee's wish to allow the judicial branch to retain funds remaining in judicial branch budgets at the end of each fiscal year, contingent upon approval of Senate Bill 58 or other enabling legislation, whether to exclude the state judicial elected officials' budget, and whether to offset reserves currently related in court administrative assessments of $2.1 million over the over the 2023-25 biennium in the Administrative Office of the Courts, and $2.2 million over the 2023-25 biennium in the Specialty Court, with commensurate reductions in general fund appropriations. Or, the other option, whether to allow the judicial branch to retain reserves currently related to court administrative assessments of $2.1 million over the 2023-25 biennium in the Administrative Office of the Courts, and $2.2 million over the 2023-25 biennium in the Specialty Court.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on this item? Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, did you have?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate all the work that you've done to bring this document together, but is there a way that, and I know I'm asking a lot, to bring to this, to our closing, to provide flexibility in working with the judicial branch for not retaining the funds, but working with them for another option that gives them the flexibility for the needs of the courts? Is that a possibility?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Absolutely. The fiscal staff could come up with some options and bring that back to closing for the committee's consideration.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and I echo all the hard work that has been put into this document. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in this option for the flexibility, is there going to be because that was an SB, right, 58, to then in that flexibility, once this, I don't know, I guess that bill is coming to finance, to strike out that language of the reversion? Is that contemplated as one of the solutions, to strike out the reversion language in SB 58 after fiscal works with the judicial branch on flexibility of funds?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Senate Bill 58 was to allow the Chief Justice to allocate funds without, is that right? Or is that what you're asking?
So in the presentation from staff, I thought I heard that there was reversion language in SB 58 for them to keep funds and not allow existing funds to come back to the general fund.
I believe Mr. Thorley has some clarification.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. Senate Bill 58, which is currently in Senate Finance and has not received a hearing yet, would create, Section 1 would create a judicial fund as a special revenue fund for the use of the judicial department of the state government. Money appropriated by the legislature from the state general fund or other money authorized for expenditure by the legislature would go into the judicial fund. And then money remaining in the judicial fund at the end of any fiscal year would not revert to the general fund, but would instead be retained in the judicial fund and roll forward to subsequent fiscal years for use by the courts.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify what I'm asking, so I would like for you to work with the judicial branch to have some flexibility with the transfer of the funds between budget years, but they would have to come back to IFC with approval. I don't want that. I don't want the funds not to be reverted and stay in a fund there. I want them to come back to IFC with approvals, but I want them to have flexibility. I'm not sure how that would be worded, so that's why I'm asking you to work with them so they have that flexibility.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you too, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Yes, fiscal staff will absolutely bring some options back at closing. And just for clarification, it sounds like whether to allow the judicial branch to retain funds remaining in judicial branch budgets at the end of each fiscal year contingent upon approval of Senate Bill 58 or other enabling legislation, excuse me, that would be a yes or no question. So with the additional flexibility, then that would be a no. Thank you.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no more discussion on this item, we are done.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
And thank you for all your time and expertise. And with that, we will go to subcommittee reports. Subcommittee reports are prepared to inform the full committee committees on the closing recommendations of various budget committees. And so we'll follow the order on the agenda, and we'll begin with the Department of Taxation. So Ms. Morris, you may come forward. And when you're ready, just please go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Nancy Morris, Fiscal Analysis Division. I will be presenting the Joint Subcommittee on General Government Closing Report for the Department of Taxation. The Joint Subcommittee on General Government completed its review of the budget for the Department of Taxation. The closing recommendations of the subcommittee result in a general fund decrease of $1,469 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium. The subcommittee recommended approval of the following closing actions. For the Department of Taxation, budget account 2361, the subcommittee recommended approval of Budget Amendment A 2312723661 to continue the replacement of the department's unified tax system funded with Federal American Rescue Plan Act coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds of $18 million in fiscal 2024 and $21.6 million in fiscal 2025. The subcommittee recommended approval of all other closing items with technical adjustments noted by staff and authorized fiscal staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And I'll accept, let's see, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno? Motion to approve. Motion to approve. Thank you, and I'll get a second from Senator Canizaro. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Oh. Any discussion? I didn't see any hands go up, thank you. All those opposed? Thank you very much, motion passes. Thank you very much for your time. And with that, Ms. Ryan, it's a little bit like musical chairs here. Hurry before somebody else gets your seat. Good morning, and go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. Madison Ryan, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. For the record, I will be reviewing the Joint Subcommittee on K-12 Higher Education CIP closing report for the State Public Charter School Authority. So the Joint Subcommittee on K-12 Higher Education CIP has completed its review of the State Public Charter School Authority budgets for the 2023-25 biennium. The following describes the more significant recommendations of the subcommittee. So State Public Charter School Authority, Budget Account 101-2711. The subcommittee recommended approval of the governor's recommendation to add one new business process analyst position, one new education programs professional position, one new grants and projects analyst position, 3 new management analyst positions, and associated operating and equipment expenditures funded with reserve reductions of $1.1 million over the 2023-25 biennium. The subcommittee recommended approval of all other closing items with technical adjustments noted by fiscal staff and authorized other technical adjustments as necessary. The next budget, the Public Charter School Loan Program, Budget Account 101-2708. The subcommittee did not recommend approval of the governor's recommendation for reserve reductions of $200,000 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium to provide loans to charter schools through the State Public Charter School Loan Program. Instead, the subcommittee recommended the funds remain in reserve and the agency request approval from the Interim Finance Committee before using the funding to provide loans, similar to the action taken by the 2019 and 2021 legislatures. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions, discussion? I'll accept a motion. So moved by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, second by Senator Canizaro. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. Thank you very much for your time this morning. And now we will go to Ms. Nichols. Oh, Mr. Nichols, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that as you were walking up. And you know, my eyes aren't just working that well. Thank you and welcome, and we're glad Mr. Nichols can be here with us today. Thank you. Go ahead.
All righty. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, committee members. For the record, my name is Colby Nichols. I'm a program analyst with the LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. Here today to present the closing report for the Department of Health and Human Services Director's Office. The subcommittee has completed its review of the Department of Health and Human Services Director's Office and has made the following recommendations for the Director's Office 2023-25 biennial budgets. The subcommittee's closing recommendations resulted in no change to general fund appropriations. The following comments describe the more significant recommendations of the joint subcommittee. For the Fund for Resilient Nevada, The subcommittee recommended approval of opioid settlement fund reserve reductions of $6.2 million in fiscal year '24 and $6 million in fiscal year 2025 to support allocations to various public and private entities to address the impact of opioid and other substance use disorders in the state. This recommendation does not include unallocated authority of $287,315 in fiscal year '24 and $558,400 in fiscal year '25 that was originally included in the governor's recommended budget. Additionally, the subcommittee directed the agency to approach the interim finance committee during the 2023-24 interim for any funding requests that were not included in the spending plan in the governor's recommended budget. For the Director's Office administration budget, the subcommittee recommended approving one-time general fund appropriations of $160,000 each year of the 2023-25 biennium for contract staff to provide training and support for high-level fiscal administration, as recommended by the governor. Additionally, the subcommittee recommended approving the governor's recommendation for transfers of Healthy Nevada funds totaling $182,844,000 in fiscal year '24 and $186,510 in fiscal year '25 for 2 contract staff to support the Office of Minority Health and Equity. For the Grants Management Unit budget, the subcommittee recommended approval of the governor's recommended spending plan for Healthy Nevada funds in this budget totaling $13.6 million over the 23-25 biennium for allocations to subgrantees. To align the funding and expenditures with the spending plan, the subcommittee also recommended approval of Budget Amendment A230343195, which increases tobacco settlement revenues in the budget by $1.6 million in each year of the 23-25 biennium. Department-wide, tobacco settlement funds increased by 3.4% from $50.6 million approved for the 21-23 biennium to $52.3 million recommended for the 23-25 biennium. The subcommittee recommended approval of the following spending plan for the Grants Management Unit for the 23-25 biennium. That includes $1.4 million for a federally qualified health center incubator project, $1.2 million for the Safe Voice program, $3.4 million for family resource centers, $2.0 million for wellness for family services, an additional $2 million for public health districts, $1.3 million for respite, $640,000 for positive behavior support, $1.1 million for independent living grants, and a total of $517,644 for administrative costs. Regarding the data analytics budget, the subcommittee recommended approval of 1 new biostatistician position to support the Nevada 988 Behavioral Health Crises Response Program. Costs associated with this position would be funded through transfers of mobile communication surcharge revenues totaling $84,983 in fiscal year '24 and $112,794 in fiscal year '25 from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health's Crisis Response Budget, as recommended by the governor. Given the companion decision unit effectuating this transfer was not included in the governor's recommended budget, the subcommittee additionally recommended approval of this position contingent upon the approval of Budget Amendment A230673165 in the crisis response budget, which would add that transfer of funds to support the biostatistician position in this budget. Additionally, the subcommittee recommended approval of 1 new biostatistician position to support the statewide opioid epidemic response, funded with the transfer of opioid settlement revenues totaling $84,983 in fiscal year '24 and $112,794 in fiscal year '25 from the Fund for Resilient Nevada, inclusive of a technical adjustment to revise the position start date to October 1st of 2023. Finally, the subcommittee recommended closing the following Department of Health and Human Services Director's Office budgets as recommended in the executive budget with either technical or no adjustments. Those include the Patient Protection Commission, the Developmental Disabilities budget, the Grief Support Trust account, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Part C budget, and the Family Planning budget. For all budgets, the subcommittee also recommended approving technical adjustments as noted by staff and authorized fiscal staff to make other technical adjustments to the DHHS Director's Office budgets as needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions? I'll accept a motion. So moved by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, second by Senator Canizaro. Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. And if you have a sister, tell Ms. Nichols thank you very much as well. All right, we will go to Mr. Barlow. You're up next. Thank you.
Morgan Barlow, Program Analyst for the Fiscal Analyst Division, Legislative Council Bureau. The Joint Subcommittee on Public Safety, Natural Resources, and Transportation has completed its review of the Colorado River Commission budget's request for the 2023 to 25 biennium. The Joint Subcommittee recommended closing the Colorado River Commission budgets as recommended by the Governor. Colorado River Commission 296-4490, with other closing item 5 contingent upon review and approval by the money committees when the pay bill is considered. Research and Development Account 296-4497, Power Delivery Project 502-4501, and Power Marketing 505-4502. The subcommittee authorized fiscal staff to make technical adjustments to the Colorado River Commission's budget as necessary. This concludes the report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, move to approve. A second by Senator Canizaro. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Next is Mr. Luna. We could have taken a field trip to Tahoe if you would have suggested it. Please go ahead when you're ready.
That would have been nice. I wore my Keep Tahoe blue tie on today to mark the occasion. So, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committees. Justin Luna for the record, Fiscal Analysis Division. Today I will be presenting the Joint Subcommittee on Public Safety, Natural Resources, and Transportation closing report for the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. The Joint Subcommittee on Public Safety, Natural Resources, and Transportation completed its review of the budget for the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, TRPA if I may, for the 2023-25 biennium. The closing recommendations of the subcommittee result in an increase in general fund appropriations of $1.2 million in fiscal year 2024 and $1.3 million in fiscal year 2025 when compared to the recommendations in the executive budget. As a note, pursuant to Nevada Revised Statutes NRS 353.246, the TRPA is exempt from the provisions of the State Budget Act and submits its proposed budget directly to the legislature. Therefore, the closing actions reflect the agency's requested budget as recommended by the subcommittee and differ from the recommendation of base budget only funding in the executive budget. The subcommittee recommended approval of the following closing actions. Tahoe Regional Planning Agency 101-4204. The subcommittee recommended approval of general fund appropriations of $261,310 in fiscal year 2024 and $376,286 in fiscal year 2025 to fund Nevada's share of annual salary increases for TRPA staff of 10% in fiscal year 2024 and an additional 4% in fiscal year 2025. Based on the governor's recommendations for state employee salary adjustments, contingent on approval of statewide cost of living adjustments in the 2023 pay bill. The subcommittee recommended approval of general fund appropriations of $250,000 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium to fund Nevada's share to continue digital conversion of agency records in the upcoming biennium. The subcommittee also recommended approval of general fund appropriations of $366,578 in each year of the 2023-25 biennium to restore Nevada's share of state funding to the 1/3 contribution specified in the bi-state Tahoe Regional Planning Compact. Finally, the subcommittee recommended approval of general fund appropriations of $330,000 in fiscal year 2024 and $346,500 in fiscal year 2025 to fund a 33% share of the otherwise unallocable portion of the administrative costs of the Tahoe Transportation District. In addition, the subcommittee provided direction that the funding to support the Tahoe Transportation District should be considered one-time for the 2023-25 biennium and indicated a preference for similar support to be included in the base budget request of the TRPA for consideration in future biennial budgets. Madam Chair, this concludes the joint subcommittee closing report for the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency.
Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll accept a motion. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, move to approve. Second by Senator Canizaro. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time today. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Hartz, Department of Veterans Services.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Good morning. For the record, Alex Hartz, Fiscal Analysis Division. The Joint Subcommittee on Public Safety, Natural Resources, and Transportation completed its review of the Department of Veterans Services budgets for the 23-25 biennium. The following comments describe the more significant recommendations of the Joint Subcommittee. For the Office of Veterans Services, Budget Account 2560, the subcommittee recommended approval of general fund appropriations of $95,279 and Federal United States Department of Veteran Affairs, which I will refer to as Federal VA, reimbursement revenues of $88,303 for total funding of $183,582 over the 2023-25 biennium, as recommended by the Governor, to fund two new full-time grounds maintenance worker positions for the Southern Nevada Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Boulder City. Additionally, the subcommittee recommended approval of general fund appropriations of $435,371 and federal VA reimbursement revenues totaling $403,494 for total funding of $838,865 over the 2023-25 biennium, as recommended by the Governor, to fund 5 new full-time positions and associated operating costs for which the department has been employing contract staff for the last several years to perform these duties. As recommended by the Governor, the subcommittee also recommended approval of general fund appropriations of $875,000 in each year of the 23-25 biennium to fund the Adopt a Vet dental program to provide dental care at no cost to veterans who do not qualify for dental care through the federal VA. Pursuant to passage and approval of SB 185 of the 2021 session, the Adopt a Vet dental program received $250,000 in both fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23. As recommended, the additional funding is projected to allow the Adopt a Vet dental program to serve up to 200 veterans in fiscal year 2024 and 250 veterans in fiscal year 2025. In recommending the increased funding, the subcommittee also recommended that the department and the Adopt a Vet dental program be required to submit an annual report on or before September 30th of each year on the operation of the program, to include but not be limited to the number of veterans served, the county of residence of those veterans, and a line item breakdown of the program expenditures supported by the general fund appropriations. Pertaining to the Northern Nevada Veterans Home Account, Budget Account 2569, the subcommittee recommended approval of general fund appropriations of $120,666 over the 2023-25 biennium to fund one new Veterans Service Officer position and associated operating costs as recommended by the governor. The new position is to be located at the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home, located in Sparks, and is part of the department's contractual obligation with the home's operator. The new position would primarily serve residents of the home and then veterans living in the surrounding communities. Lastly, the subcommittee recommended authority for fiscal staff to make necessary technical adjustments and recommended closing the following Department of Veteran Services budget as included in the executive budget with a technical adjustment depending upon the action of the Interim Finance Committee at its April 6, 2023 meeting. And I'll just remind you that was the installation of the backflow prevention devices that they submitted the work program to do in this fiscal year. That pertains to Southern Nevada Veterans Home Account, Budget 2561. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, move to approve. Second by Senator Canizaro. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll move into our final agenda item, public comment. And so we'll start here in Carson City. Do I have anybody? Las Vegas, I'm not seeing anyone. BPS, we'll go to the phone lines.
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers to provide public comment at this time.
BPS, could you clarify? We could not hear what you said.
Sorry, Chair. The public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, committee members, that completes our business. Thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. Go out, enjoy the beautiful day, and we'll see you on Monday. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.